All right, we are live. It's been a while since we've had one of these live videos. Had a lot of things going on, a couple of holidays in there. So hopefully we're back to some form of normalcy schedule again. And we're going to do today's live and mindfulness exercise looking at the mindfulness of mind and just the voice inside our head. You know, the different thoughts that we have, the voice that's continually playing. You know, when you stop and think about it, there is a constant dialogue that goes on in our minds all the time. It narrates everything that we're seeing, looking at, experiencing. It's going on in there. You know, we have that little voice. It's like you see somebody coming up and it's like, well, wait a minute, what's their name? I can't remember their name. What is it? Is it Steve? Is it Tom? Is it Joe? What is their name? They just told me their name yesterday. What is that name now? You know, what's the matter with me? This is so embarrassing. This is going on in my brain and in my mind. And if you hadn't noticed, this type of dialogue is constantly happening in our minds. And you ever wondered why it talks? Why that dialogue's there? Have you ever stopped and just noticed it happening? You know, and how does it decide what to say, when to say it? How much of what it says turns out to be true? You ever pay attention to that? How much what that voice in your head is saying turns out to be true? How much of what it said is even important in the big scheme of things? And right now you're probably a voice in your head saying, well, I don't know if I know what he's talking about. I don't have any voice inside my head. And you're hearing it from the voice inside your head. So, it's good for us to take time, to take a moment to step back and to be mindful of that voice. To get to know it better, to understand it better. The problem is we're too close to that voice. We have to step away from it and step back and watch the conversation happen. So, you know, going down the road, that voice starts up. It's like, hey, I think I was supposed to call Tom. I should have. I can't believe I forgot to call Tom. He's going to be so mad at me. He may never talk to me again. Maybe I should stop and call him now. I don't want to stop the car right now. And that voice is constantly going on. And if you'll notice, when that voice gets started, that voice takes both sides of the argument. It takes both sides of the conversation. It doesn't care which side it takes, because it's going to take both sides as long as it can keep talking. So when you're tired and trying to sleep and that voice gets started up again, what am I doing? I can't go to sleep yet. I forgot to call Tom. I remembered in the car, but then I didn't call him, and then I forgot again. And now it's too late. I shouldn't call him now. I don't even know why I thought about it. I need to fall asleep now. Now I can't fall asleep. I'm not tired anymore. I've got all this going on. I got a big day tomorrow. I need to go to sleep. I got to get up early. And no wonder you can't sleep when that's going on. That voice going on in our head. Have you ever wondered why we tolerate that voice talking to us all the time? even if what it's saying is soothing and nice, it can still be disturbing. It can still be disturbing everything that we're doing. So it's good to take some time observing this voice that's constantly going on. This voice, the first thing that if you really stop to look at it and pay attention to this voice that's going on all the time, the first thing that you'll notice is it never shuts up. Never. When it's left to its own, it just talks. Imagine if you were to see somebody walking around constantly talking to himself. You'd think, well, that's odd. In the nicest sense. Yeah. You might think, well, look at that crazy man going down through there talking to himself. And you'd wonder, okay, if he's the one doing the talking and he's the one doing the listening, obviously he knows what he's going to say already. So what's the point? But yet, that's the same thing that's happening inside our head, inside our mind. That voice inside our head is talking. Why is it talking? Then you got to ask yourself, is it you that's talking? Is it you that's the voice, and is it you that's listening? And when the voice argues with itself, who's it arguing with? I mean, who could possibly win? If you really stop and think about it. That voice in our head is constantly going on. Who could possibly win? It can get very confusing, really. So if you watch carefully, you'll see that that voice is just trying to find a comfortable place to rest. It's just looking for a comfortable place. And it'll change sides back and forth in a moment for whichever way seems to help it find that place of rest. It doesn't even quiet down when it finds out that it's wrong. It just keeps going and going and going. Even if you yell at it and tell it just to shut up, it'll only stop for a second. You know, you ask it, why do you have to talk all the time? Well, it'll find an answer. And so yelling at it, telling it to be quiet, never works. So we can't shut it up that way. So the best way to free up this constant chatter, this incessant voice, is to step back and look at it. View it objectively. Just view the voice as a vocalizing mechanism that's capable of making it appear like someone's talking. Like somebody's in there talking to you. It's a thing. It's not you. You are the one observing the conversation. You are the one that's observing and listening to the mechanism. So the first step in helping quiet that constant chatter down is to begin to notice it, to pay attention to it, to be mindful of it. No matter what the voice is saying, it's all the same. It doesn't matter if it's saying nice things or mean things, worldly things or spiritual things. It doesn't matter because it's the voice talking to you. So the only way that you can get some distance from that, the only way that you can stop differentiating what it's saying, stop feeling that one thing it says is you and the other thing that it says is not you. So if you're hearing it talk, if you're listening to it, it's obviously not you. If you looked at 3 photographs of yourself, looking at those photographs, it would be easy for you to understand none of those photographs are you. That they're not you, you're the one noticing the photographs. If you look at an image of you in the mirror, we have to realize that that image is not you. You are the one noticing the image. So you hear that voice when it talks. Just to prove that you can hear that voice, it's a thing that talks, make it say hello right now. Yeah. Yeah, so say it over and over a few times in your mind. Hear that voice saying hello. Now shout it inside. You can hear yourself saying hello inside. And of course, you can hear yourself saying hello inside. There's a voice talking. And there is you that's noticing the voice talking. The problem is that it's easy to notice the voice saying hello, but it's difficult to see that no matter what the voice says, it's still just a voice talking, and you are the one listening. There's nothing that that voice can say that's more you than anything else it says. Again, looking at not even photographs of yourself, but just looking at 3 different objects. Here in front of me, I can see a gas can, a coffee cup, and an air conditioner. That's easy to see that none of those 3 things are me. They're not me at all. And whatever things you notice in front of you right now, just look and pick out 3 things that you can see easily from where you're sitting or standing. And it doesn't matter what those 3 things are. It's easy to understand those are not you. Those are something else. Those are things outside of you. So you see, it's an act of a subject perceiving different objects. And so you are the subject. And you're perceiving the different objects. The things that are not you are the objects. And so when that voice starts back and forth with its banter, whatever it's saying, as long as you think one of those things is you, but the other thing it's saying is not you, then you've lost that objectivity of that object. So think of yourself as a part that says nice things. That there's that voice that's still talking, though. You may want to think of yourself as part of you saying nice things. But the voice is still talking, and you may like what it says, but even then, if you agree with what it says, it's still not you. And there's nothing. It looks like we've got storms coming, so we'll wrap this up fairly quickly. But there's nothing more important to true growth than realizing that you are not the voice in your mind, that you're the one that hears it. So when those voices come, when those voices are constantly chattering, realize that most of that talking is just a waste of time and energy. The truth is that most of life will unfold in accordance to forces that are far outside your control. It doesn't matter what your mind says about it. Things are going to happen the way they happen. That's reality. I posted a post a couple of days ago. Your hypnotic thought of the day. What would happen for the better if you were to, instead of just losing your expectations or just lowering your expectations, lose them altogether? Because that's when the suffering comes. That's when the problems come. That's when the challenges arise. Because we have expectations of how things are supposed to be, how things are supposed to happen, what should happen. We think, well, I'm going to have a good time if it doesn't rain. But if it rains, I'm going to have a miserable time. And you're already setting yourself up to be miserable when you can't control the weather either way. So what you need to learn to do is be mindful of the reality of the situation, and rather than having expectations, you're going to be, if it doesn't rain, I'm going to have a good time. If it rains, I'm still going to have a good time. It may be different than what I was expecting to do, but I'll find a way to have a good time. So it's kind of like when you go to bed tonight, you know, it's like you deciding whether or not you want the sun to come up tomorrow. You can decide whether you want it to or not, but according to the cycle of things, the sun will come up tomorrow, and if it doesn't, we won't know it. But there are billions and billions of things going on inside this world that's happening that we can think about all we want, but it's still happening. It's still going on whether we want it to or not. And we realize that our thoughts have far less impact on this world than we'd like to think. If we can just grasp that reality, you know, I'm learning it each day. I'm a work in progress. I'm teaching myself. I'm learning from others. I'm learning how to be more mindful of the situations that 99.99999999999 infinity % of everything that happens in this world is out of my control. And that the thoughts that I have about them, I can get irritated with the people in front of me going down the road. Easy. That's one of my weaknesses. But it doesn't matter how irritated I get with them. It doesn't matter how much I want to yell at them. It doesn't matter how much I honk the horn at them. It doesn't matter how stupid I think they are. It doesn't matter any of those thoughts that I have. It does not change the situation at all. It does not change the reality of what's happening. So when we become more mindful of our mind and this voice in our head, that it's a thing, that it's not us, then eventually we'll see that the real cause of all of our problems in life is not life itself. It's the commotion that's going on up here about life that causes the challenges, that causes the problems, that causes the anger, that causes the frustration, that causes the anxiety, that causes the stress. It's all of that going on up here that's not you. You're just observing it all. And so, if the majority of what that voice up here is saying is meaningless and unnecessary, why does it exist? Why? If you watch it, if you begin to watch it objectively, realizing it's not you, that it's a thing that's going on, you'll see that there's a build-up in your nervous system. There's a buildup of nervous, fearful, desire-based energies. And that voice becomes extremely active. It's easy to see when you're angry with somebody. You think about it. When you're angry with somebody and you feel like you just want to just rip into them, watch how many times that inner voice tells you, or watch how many times that inner voice tells them off before you ever even open your mouth. Before you ever even see them. Somebody that you're angry at, before you ever even see them, watch how many times. That energy is building up inside. It's like a tea kettle. When that pressure builds up, it just has to release somewhere. And even when you're not bothered by something, if you'll pay attention, you'll notice that voice happening, walking down the street. You'll say, oh, look at that, there's a dog. Oh, look at that dog. I had a dog like that when I was a kid. Or my aunt had a dog like that when I was a kid. It looks like my first dog. And there's an old Pontiac Grand Safari wagon. I remember having one of those when we were a kid growing up and sitting in the back seat. And look, it's got Alaska plates on it. Now, what's one of those doing that old way down here now? And so that voice is narrating your world. And you already see what's going on around you. Well, you already see what's happening outside. So what help is it that this voice is repeating it, that's narrating it? So we become mindful of that voice in our thoughts. And we start paying attention to it. We start studying it. We start being mindful, looking at it. We find that that narration makes us feel more comfortable with the things that are going on around us, with the world around us. That voice is like a backseat driver. It makes us feel as though things are more in our control. We feel like we have some relationship to whatever it's talking about. That tree that we see, my coffee cup that I see, is no longer just a tree or just a coffee cup that has nothing to do with me. It's a tree I saw. It's a coffee cup I saw, I have. We saw it, we labeled it, and we judged it, whether we liked it or we didn't like it, whether it was good, whether it was bad. And by verbalizing it mentally, by that voice narrating it, we brought that initial direct experience into our internal world, into our thoughts. And so just take a moment to be mindful of your thoughts, to be mindful of that voice. Examining the difference between our experience of the outside world and our interaction with what's going on in here. And be mindful of it. That inner world is an alternate environment that's under our control. The outside world continues to march on. It follows its own laws. And when that voice in here narrates your outside world, then those thoughts are now side by side with all the other thoughts in your head. And they intermix and they influence your experience of the world. And so what you end up experiencing is a personal presentation of the world according to you. rather than the unfiltered experience that's actually happening, that's actually out there, the reality that's before you. So over the next few days, be mindful. Just step back and observe the voices. Observe that voice and how it takes both sides, how it wants to argue, and just be an observer. Just like when you're driving down the road and the trees zip past you as you're driving and they're no concern, they come into your conscious awareness and leave just as quickly without any effect on you. Be mindful of your thoughts. Be mindful of that voice in your head and allow it to come into conscious awareness and leave just as quickly, knowing that it's not you. All right, so there's enough to chew on for a day or two. So just think about that. Be mindful of that voice. Be mindful of those thoughts. And be mindful that that voice and those thoughts are not you. Those emotions that those thoughts bring up or that voice creates is not you. They're thoughts, feelings, and emotions. You are the observer of all of that. All right, so good to be back with you guys. Hope y'all got something out of this. It was a little different today than how we normally do in our mindfulness exercises. But this is something I've been playing over in my mind for a few days on what I wanted to do. We may do some more like this. If you want more of the mindfulness exercises, let me know in the comments, please. All right, hope you guys have a great week ahead of you, and we'll see you later. Bye.